Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the McShin Foundation's award-winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd. I am your host today, Nathan Mitchell, and we are sitting over here with our producer slash occasional host slash guru of all things audiovisual and or sound and light, Justin B. I won't even try to say it because I say it wrong all the time.
It's Bognar.
Yeah, I want to say Bognar.
Everybody
It's
wants
just,
to say Bognar.
Wagner. It rhymes with Wagner in my head. No,
At
that's
least,
not
at least
why.
you're not saying Boinger. I got
Boinger.
that once.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Oof.
it's great.
Well, today, Justin and I have as a special guest a friend of mine. And for some reason, Jaclyn, I thought you were in St. Louis up until just about an hour ago.
Yeah,
And so,
no, I moved here. Yeah.
yeah, well, there you go, right? We have a friend of mine from about a year now. We've known each other, right?
Mhm.
And we just met in person and mobilized. Our special guest today is Jaclyn Brown. And
Hi.
I'm going to let Jaclyn introduce herself because I know there's a lot of changes going on and we're sort of like in between situations and going things. And I love this space I'm so familiar with and I'm excited for you. What's going on, Jaclyn? You want to tell everybody?
Yeah, so yesterday was actually my last day in corporate America. I know, I'm very excited. I was doing just an IT role. It wasn't anything having to do with advocacy, recovery, anything like that. And in my spare time, I was doing, work with recovery advocacy project. I am the volunteer coordinator for a local syringe service program here in Phoenix, Arizona, which is called Shot in the Dark. And so I've been doing a bunch of things here and there, realizing, hey, I'm really passionate about this. And I thought, well, maybe I could like make it my job. So when we were at Mobilize Recovery, what was that? A month back now? I guess so.
Yeah.
At the end of our coaching day, I told everyone, I said, I'm going to leave corporate America. I don't have a plan. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to do it because it seems like the right thing to do. So I am officially unemployed right now, or on entrepreneurial, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I like that. How about entrepreneurial discovery?
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, that sounds less harsh than unemployed.
There is like the industry that we're both in, right? Well, the industry, I hate that word too, actually. But like what we both do, recovery advocacy, we talk about stigma all the time. And we think about all the stigmatizing language, we think of all the stigmatizing, well, actions too, but that other people use, and also the language we use ourselves. Like I'm learning to be more mindful in the way I say things and making sure that I'm being person first, person centered in my language and my speaking. And so, one of the things that I'm so grateful about meeting you, Jaclyn, is because you, of all people, really helped early this year, helped me look at harm reduction differently than I always did. And so, would you, for the sake of, hey, Joanna, she's watching, so is Marshall. Hey, Joanna and Marshall, good to see you both. I know, yeah, right. Hearts to everybody. I love it. Good to see you. Could you perhaps talk about what syringe services and what harm reduction, what it is and what it means, and share for us about that, please?
Absolutely. So, for a syringe service program, pretty much what we do is that we provide clean syringes along with safe injection supplies to people who are still in active use. The goal of this is to help reduce the transmission of HIV, Hep C. Additionally, we hand out naloxone. We hand out a bunch of safe supplies so that people are reducing their risk, reducing their harm, and while they are in active use, because in our society, it seems like you're either in active use or you're in recovery, and then there's that gap there where it seems like people may not help you. So what we're doing is we're meeting people where they are, understanding they're not ready for recovery at this point or maybe ever, and we're just giving them tools to help them be safe. I think a big misconception is that a lot of people think we're enabling people, and in reality we aren't, because if we existed or not, people are still going to use drugs. We didn't exist 15, 20 years ago and people were still doing it. So I think that's a big misconception. I always like to think of harm reduction as unconditional love, because we're going to love you no matter what stage of the process you are in. And if we can help you, if we can help save, someone's life, if we can give you naloxone, train you how to use it, and you can save someone else's life, then why not do that?
Yeah. And Jaclyn, you just hit on something that I came across this morning. I was facilitating a group here with our peers, and most of the people were new to recovery here in the room, and this was our sort of orientation group, the McShin way. And so, basically, I go over the rules and all the things that are on our list of what do's and don'ts while you're here. And I love doing this group because it just helps it creates buy-in, or that's my goal, is to create buy-in. It's like, this is why we do this, and this is what happens. And I've been around the block for a few years now here. I say, we've seen the things happen. So one of the questions that came up, because I almost always ask this of the group when I do this group, I always ask, is there anyone here who does not identify as an addict or as an alcoholic? And I'm using the language of 12-step fellowships, which is a lot more familiar right off the jump for a lot of our folks. And almost always, everybody identifies that way. And then I started saying, okay, well, we understand that addiction is a disease. And so we started talking about the disease of addiction. And even within the group of, one of the individuals who identifies as an addict, um, sort of got into well, yeah, but why can't we just stop? You know? And that was that moment I realized, well, today, and I've heard that before, it's like, we're still fighting ourselves mentally. I'm still fighting myself. I'm still fighting myself. I'm a person in recovery from a substance use disorder. And every day, I get up and I work on that recovery. And I fight that stigma. And I think about, what it means to be in recovery. Is recovery for many in recovery, and I'm going to probably say something a little controversial, but many in recovery, many people might assume that being in recovery means total abstinence. And and of course, that goes for, some people say you're abstinent, but also could be on MAT, MAR. Some people say that you can't be abstinent if you're on that, and all of those things, right? So what do you, I appreciate that you brought that up, the stigma, but what are you doing to really meet people where they're at? And what do you suggest for people who may not be comfortable with that? The shift, you helped me shift my thinking, and you helped me discover, so, I, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, but there was a group where I was talking about, we were talking harm reduction. I think we were in a breakout group somewhere at some point. And, I sort of casually made the point that harm reduction was a means to abstinence. And you very politely, but also directly, sort of altered my, not corrected my thinking. That's not exactly, but you instructed, educated me on that thinking. And it really was an aha moment for me. I really appreciate that. So talk about that. If you would talk about that. What does that mean? What does recovery mean, to you? What is being a person who meets, clearly I don't quite know much about harm reduction, so I have you on and I'm talking too much. Talk about stuff, because I love this topic, because I'm so passionate about trying to meet people where they are, like, more and more. It's like, I'm sick of seeing my friends die. I mean, it comes right down to it. I had this conversation yesterday with a new professional mentor coach, and a professional coach, and I'm getting excited about all the things I'm doing. And it's like, but when it comes right down to the end of it, I'm like, I'm sick of seeing the people I love and care about die. And so, how can we be better at not allowing people to die?
Hmm. And I think that's a really great point, because education, I think, is the number one thing, and being open and communicating about it, because I think there's this, like you mentioned, there's this stigma surrounding what is recovery. Like, if someone says, I used to use heroin, but now I just, I only drink alcohol. Most people would say, well, you're not in recovery because you're not abstinent. However, the way that I view it, or a lot of harm reductionists might view it, is that if you have decreased whatever substance that was making your life chaotic, and all of that, if you've decreased that in any way, and you're in a position where you're making better decisions for yourself in regards to your health, in regards to just anything, we consider that a form of recovery. Because the whole point is, I used to be in the frame of mind of, you're doing drugs or you're not. And you need to go to rehab or you can't. You know what I mean? MAT, none of that ever crossed my mind. And so I've definitely heard people talk about how someone's on MAT, well, they're still on methadone. So clearly they're not. But again, to go back to the science of it, it is an addiction, it is a disease. So it is something where people don't understand. If someone's taking methadone, it's satisfying that craving, but not providing that high. So someone's not, we're not just handing out legal stuff here and they're experiencing that same thing. Your body withdrawals, and as you probably understand, the withdrawal piece is so huge. So I think harm reduction is about lessening the bad consequences, so to speak. Is it something where someone can get to complete abstinence through harm reduction? Sure, and that's great. But is it something where maybe abstinent or their version of recovery is, I used to use 5 times a week, I only use 1 time a week, I use safe supplies, I use a small amount at the end? Then that's fine. If you can still live your life and you're safe and all of that, then who am I to judge how you should live your life? My idea of what recovery is not the same as yours. So I think it's just more so an acceptance of the fact that we're allowed to define recovery as we want to define it. It shouldn't have to be one set standard.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, I'm never going to discount the 12-step model because, that's my primary focus on recovery. Um, but a lot of people find recovery through a 12-step model.
Mhm.
And a lot of people get really turned off. This is a conversation I've been having a lot about MAT, MAR. When I say I'm sorry for anybody who's listening. Medicated assisted treatment / medicated assisted recovery. It's the same thing, just two different wordings, right? I'm gonna say it is the same thing, right? Yeah, MAT/MAR, same thing. I'm asking you actually, Jaclyn, because I realize maybe is there a difference in the two?
I don't think so. Honestly, this is the first time I've heard MAR. Maybe
Oh,
you made it up. I
no,
don't
no,
know.
no. I'm sure I heard that in some SAMHSA meeting somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, if you dig into like SAMHSA, like they're pretty progressive in thinking, but like on the top level, But anyway, um, so we get a lot of pushback, and I think it turns people off to think some of the accepted responses to addiction, and by accepted I mean the clinical responses of by doctors actually prescribing Suboxone or methadone, or even Vivitrol. I heard somebody badmouth Vivitrol the other day, and it was and in my head I'm thinking that is one of the most dangerous things I've heard out of a person with long-term recovery ever. Are you kidding me? You're telling a newcomer, don't use Vivitrol, you're not clean? That's insane to me. And so when I hear about what you're doing and what I hear about other people doing, and then I look at what was just happening in Canada, a couple days ago, they were talking, I think was it Vancouver, Ottawa? I forget. But medication for opioid disorder. That one's good right there, Tanya. Um, when I look at that, I'm like, there's a real push of recognizing that the disease of addiction is not going to go away by putting people in jail or by continuing to blame, and shame people into recovery. And so if we can make the supply safer, if we can continue to help people and meet them where they are, well, then there's a chance that, that we can survive this thing. So I'm rambling a lot about this because I'm so intrigued about what's next, right? I'm a person who believes I'm a person. This is Nathan. This is not McShin, but I'm a person who believes that we should work towards a Portugal model. I think that's actually pretty much a John thing too, which is to say we decriminalize, maybe even legalize, so that we can create a safer supply, but also get people people who need recovery into recovery, not just a one size fits all. We know doesn't work. Get people into recovery. So when we can do that, getting the criminal, I want to say justice, but criminal injustice system out of it, right? Getting the criminal justice system out of the picture and getting, the public health care response to the crisis. And this seems like to be one of the most ethical grassroots, right boots on the ground responses to this thing. And I'm so grateful to be in spaces where I get to learn this. So, all that said, you can probably clarify anything that I just said, but I really want to know, Jacqueline, because I know you got so much going on in your life. And I read your resume, I read your bio, and I'm looking at you and I'm thinking, what got you to this place today? What got you to do this work? Why are you here?
So, this really began because my brother was someone who suffered from substance use disorder. In 2010, he was involved in a car accident and he was ejected from his vehicle. He was in a wheelchair for a couple of months. And so, while he was in the wheelchair, they gave him a bunch of oxycodone. And as you know, with oxycodone, I mean, that seems to be just a common story for a lot of people. Some injury, something happens, and then once the prescription runs out, he moved on to heroin. And there were periods where he went into recovery. There were times where he would try to do it on his own. He would try to get Suboxone like on the street, and he's like, "Oh, I know how to do this." And it almost like, from my point of view, it was like, I don't know about this, you do, so I'm just gonna kind of follow your lead on this. But there was a point where, I've watched intervention. I thought, you know what? Let's do intervention. Look at all these great outcomes. That was the stupidest thing we could have done, truly, because it turned into the biggest mess ever. And honestly, it was the first time that I truly felt like, wow, like this really has this power. This disease has this power that I can't even comprehend. So we kept thinking, you need to go to rehab, you need to go to rehab, you need to go to rehab. That's that tunnel vision. Because even when you Googled it, because that's just what I don't know how to do something. Let me Google it. Everything is focused on rehab, everything's focused on detox. So the idea of MAT, harm reduction, that didn't show up in my search results. So it was also something too, especially as a family, where we didn't necessarily talk about it openly because of that stigma. We didn't want anyone to judge my brother Mark. We didn't want anyone to judge us and think like, "Oh, you guys clearly failed as a family." And there were periods off and on, and then eventually on November 16th, 2018, he passed away of a heroin overdose. And from what I know, he had been abstinent for maybe a few weeks, a month, and it's something where, he could have just used his normal dose and it just didn't, it wasn't good. And that completely devastated me because then additionally on social media, I gotta love social media, just seeing people's speculation as to what exactly happened because it's not something you really want to blast out there. And to see people speculating, what happened, someone saying, was it another overdose? It was just very diminishing of who he was. So I got pissed and I thought, you know, I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think of us. I don't care about this because truly the worst thing has happened. So I'm going to start talking about this. And I originally got involved with Shatterproof and I became an ambassador because they're very focused on stigma. And that was the way I actually kind of did my first, I guess, speech, so to say, was his eulogy. And that's where I was very open. I talked about his life. I talked about his accident, what led to everything, and what he struggled with, because along with that, there was PTSD, depression, anxiety. It's people don't realize the comorbidity that occurs with substance use. So, um, that was my first time I was open about it. But if you had not attended the funeral, I didn't say anything on social media. I felt this is too much right now. I can't really, discuss this. And then finally, I thought, I can't keep this in forever. I was just kind of like thinking in my head, how am I gonna say this to people? How am I gonna talk about this? And a part of me also, we were waiting on the autopsy report as if we were gonna like get different news. Maybe it wasn't what we thought. Maybe it's something different. And sure enough, it was acute heroin toxicity. So, okay, well, how do we talk about this? And I decided to just post my eulogy online. And I said, this is what it is. this is probably the best thing I've ever written. And just so you know, I'm going to keep speaking out about this, and I'm probably going to annoy a lot of you. So I did blog posts, I did events in honor of my brother. The first event I did was called Mark's Mile, just a 1 mile mark, or 1 mile mark, a 1 mile walk in honor of Mark. And it was, my goal was to raise $2,000. By the time the walk was over, we had raised over $7,000. And then later on that year, that November, it was the week before the 1 year anniversary of his death. And I was invited to speak at the Los Angeles 5K Shatterproof event, to be a speaker and speak on stigma and all of that. And I thought, you know what? This is going to be so cathartic. It's, almost the year. Like, this is going to be healing and great. And I can't wait to do this. And then I gave this speech. When I was done, I felt awful. I felt terrible. I had just been pushing myself constantly to be doing something, to just distract myself from the grief. And mind you, I had been going to grief counseling and dealing with it there, but I had run myself down so much because I was so focused on defending him, and I stopped taking care of myself. So I had to take a break for a little bit, and then I got an invitation via Shatterproof to go to Mobilize Recovery. And this was in 2020, so it was all online. And I remember thinking, I don't know why I'm being invited to this. Like, I'm not in recovery myself. Like, I have no experience with this. I don't think I belong. And Lynn, who is at Shatterproof, she's like, you really should join. I was like, okay. So I remember being extremely intimidated because, like, you can see the list of people who are attending. You see people's bios. I see CEO, director of this, executive director, all that. And I'm like, I'm an ambassador, I don't even work in this field. I just felt really out of my league. And the key point, the key moment for me was we went into the Zoom breakout rooms, and I was with 3 other women who are in recovery, and they do peer support. I told them, I said, flat, I don't think I should be here. I'm pretty sure, like, this is not for me. I'm just a family member. My brother died of an overdose. I don't think I need to be here because I'm not in recovery. And one of the people said, but you are in recovery. You're recovering from the loss of your brother, and you do belong here. And just that comment alone made me feel like, okay, these are my people. Because truly, people who are, who I know personally, just my friends growing up, no one's gone through what I've gone through. So I felt very isolated and alone. And so to be amongst this community of people who get it, they've lost people, they've lost their siblings, their family members, all of that. It was, it sounds bad, but refreshing to hear that other people have gone through some bad stuff like I did. So I mean, in this last year, I became really active with Recovery Advocacy Project. I actually in May I started as a field organizer. So I help out the Illinois team, the Missouri team, and the Florida team. And I kind of help facilitate those meetings. I always tell people when they don't know who I am, I'm like, I'm a mini Aaron and Garrett. So I'm just kind of helping them out. But then you come up to Mobilize this year, where we got to do coaching. And that was something where, I felt very intimidated by that. I'm like, who am I to coach people on public narrative? This is this Harvard program, and I'm going to teach people how to do Harvard things. I'm like, no, I don't think I'm good for this. But again, it's just that doubt, like, I don't belong. But that Saturday morning when we get there at 6:45, everyone's like all amped up, like, I don't think I can do this. Like, it was refreshing to have everyone else also feel like, I don't think I should be doing this right now. But I think at the end of the day, we all felt really good about what we did that day. And I think it was a success. And there were a lot of wild card variables that day. So I think we adapted really well also. And that truly solidified, like, okay, maybe I should do this all the time. So
Mhm.
here I am. Oh, and then I got involved with Shot in the Dark at one point. Sorry. I got involved with Shot in the Dark at one point. In the middle of COVID. I thought, hey, let me go meet the community in COVID. And I started just doing outreach. And then eventually this past May, I became volunteer coordinator. And in that time frame, I've been able to bring on like 35 new volunteers.
Wow.
A chunk of them work in the healthcare field, which is awesome because I think that's one place where there's a huge stigma. But we've got this little army of nurses that they are all about harm reduction. They are all about helping people at sites. They're like, hey, is that an abscess? Let me check that out. Just the fact that they want to volunteer their time, and especially with how hard working nurses are, especially in this climate, the fact that they'll still come out and help out is amazing. So I'm just really grateful to have been exposed to so many amazing people. And then on top of that, to volunteer with so many people who are so invested in the health for others. Because again, we're an all volunteer, all donation organization. We don't, no one's getting paid for this. It's truly us wanting to just go out there and help who we can. So that's a really long way of saying that I do a lot, but I love what I do. It's really I do this in my brother's honor. One thing he used to always talk about is the golden rule and treating people how you want to be treated. And he used to say, stay golden. And I got that tattooed on my arm. And it's just a reminder to me that, treat people how you want. And that's what I'm doing.
Um, I've got goosebumps. I've actually got tears too, and it was the thought of the nurses. I mean, and the volunteers, getting that, because that's a big group of people, and getting everybody to work on that common vision, that shared vision of bringing hope and just love and compassion, right? No judgment, and thinking of that's an abscess. How can I help treat that? That's that's yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool what you've done. I didn't realize you had done all of that, and I'm sure Mark would be really honored to know you. I'm sure he was honored to know you. Um, there was a moment. I'm so glad you brought up the immobilize and the. You got me teary eyed, Jaclyn, for real. There was a moment when we were starting out at that 6:45 a.m. thing, on that Saturday morning, and Rosie brought us all into the circle, and I know, like, 2 weeks before, I had quit the whole thing, and I said, I don't have time for this. I can't do this. I don't know what to do, and I told myself that story, and I quit, and I was polite, I was polite in my email, but I'm like, nope, can't do it. Bye. And Rosie sent me a very, very polite, very kind email, very respectful, asking me to reconsider. And I was really grateful for that. And getting to that moment at 6:45 a.m. when we sat there, we got in the circle, and all of the doubts and the fears and the are we good enough, and what I was just hearing you say about, that's me, that's like, I'm not good enough, I don't know how to do this, I'm scared. And there was that moment where she had us all take a half a piece of paper and either write or draw that that thing in the back of our head, that voice, that monster. I forget, she called hers Ernie, Eddie, Steve. Oh, I forget what she called it. She had a name for it, and I can picture it though. And I drew mine, and I put something on there. And hey, funny enough, mine looked like Elvis. I don't know why, but my picture looked like Elvis. But we folded it up, we put it in a box, and we locked that box. And it was very symbolic, but it was very cleansing, because even at the end, we got that back. Like, it was one of those, we're going to get that back. You can have that back. You don't have to lose that fear, because that fear, that companion, it does probably do some good things. I'm sure a psychologist or psychiatrist somewhere will tell me that it's a good thing somewhere, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. He's just a guy that sits in the back of on my shoulder and tells me I can't do anything. Um, but it was a really important moment before we stepped into that role, and then we got to put ourselves into this position and meet all these extraordinary people with very, very powerful stories, um, who, are doing the work that you're doing, or will soon be doing the work, or have been doing the work, or doing the work I'm doing too. I won't say I'm not doing anything. So, like that's incredible to get to that point. When you made a decision to leave your job, and today is day one of it's funny, today's a Wednesday too. It's like just sayonara. I picture you doing it kind of like half baked style, and I can't use the words because the words are too foul. But you know what I'm talking about, right? You're cool. I'm out. Right? Yeah, that's. I picture you doing that. I'm sure you didn't do it that way. I'm sure it was very, very polite and civil in all the ways we're supposed to do as grown adults. But um, without having this next step in mind, or this next action ready to go, what are you doing in the meantime? Are you going to take some time to relax, sit by the pool? I see pictures of you doing all kinds of random exercisey type things on Facebook, and I love that. It's so encouraging to watch you be you. What are you doing now?
Well, that's a great question. So to kind of touch on what you said though, like fear has stopped me from doing so much in my life. And I have been pondering this for months. And I was so afraid that I'm not good enough. I don't think I am qualified. I didn't go to school for this. I didn't like who am I? Like I have lived experience, but that's it. I have lived experience. I've gone through a lot of stuff. I mean, even outside of what happened with my brother. And what truly motivated me is I ended up getting a life coach. And I remember kind of balking at the idea of a life coach. I'm like, oh, someone's going to teach me how to live. Like, okay. Yeah, exactly.
How
So
bougie?
as someone who had been going to therapy this whole time, the great way she described it is therapy, you focus on what the root of a lot of your problems are. You're focusing on, okay, this is why I do these things because this crappy thing happened to me, blah, 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 whatever. Life coaching is saying, okay, you know what you are, you know who you are. How can you optimize and take the best of you and move forward with that in your life towards what you want? And my life coach, her name is Maureen. She's amazing. I've only been with her for maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, but right off the bat, she's like, you need to set a date. You need to set a date and you need to face that fear, and that's your retirement date." And I was like, "Okay, we're not retiring. Like I still do a job." And she's like, "No, you're retiring from corporate America. You need to set a date and you need to have a plan." And I was like, "But I don't have a plan. That's the plan. I don't have a plan." She's like, "No, plan on the date and wherever you are at that point is where you're meant to be." And I went, okay. So, I had not, I knew maybe October, maybe November, maybe I'll go till the end of the year. And then it was like, everyone must come back into the office and we're going to be flexible. So you are here Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. I'm like, that's not flexible. And it was the opposite of flexible. And I thought, I don't know if I can go back to the office. I don't know if I can like live this corporate life again because I would truly log on to work. I'd wake up early, log on to work, log off, hop on an advocacy call, hop on another meeting, hop on this. And I could just do it all from home because Zoom is magical. But then the idea of, well, now I have to sit in traffic for 45 minutes and now I have to like, I don't want to do that anymore. And I finally just faced that fear, and a big part of that fear was, going to be telling people, um, I don't have a plan, and if, you know me, I always have a plan. I have a backup plan to the plan, so this is the opposite of everything that I'm used to. But what I'm realizing is that everything that has been very uncomfortable for me has been very good for me. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to lean into this and we'll see what happens. So as I said, I'm a field organizer and I've been doing that just like 10 hours a month. But I told Aaron and Garrett, I was like, yo, I don't have a job. So if you want to load me up, I can do more work. But one other thing I do is I do a podcast. It's called Dark and Enlighten, where I talk to people about dark topics that people don't like to talk about. A lot of it was truly based on grief, because grief is that weird thing that nobody really wants to talk about or knows what to say to it. But then also talking about mental health. I mean, like just the roller coaster of how things go. And I talk to different people about, just health issues. Like, health issues can be weird for people to talk about. So that's something that's, very much like my passion project. Would I love to monetize and do great things? Sure, but that's not my end game or goal. So um, I've now even thought of the idea of creating some sort of curriculum or something, some sort of coaching, like carrying that coaching piece on. Because I did talk with Rosie and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna have a job. So, if you need a coach, and I am actually coaching someone next week who went to Mobilize and they wanted to dig a little bit more on their story of self. So it's my husband was like, "Oh, I can take PTO and we can spend the day together." And I was like, "Well, my next free day is November 1st. Is that good for you?" Because like I'm not doing this I was hoping to sleep in. I woke up at 5:45. Like all these things that I thought were going to happen and be relaxing. That's just not me, but in November I think I am going to chill out a bit. It will be the 3-year anniversary of my brother's death, and usually around that time I'm fundraising. I'm doing something to kind of like push and remind everyone that my brother is still not here, but he should be remembered. And what ends up happening is, once again, I run myself ragged doing social media and I'm fundraising and oh my God, remember my brother, remember my brother. I'm actually going to honor myself and know that I don't think my brother's going to be pissed that I'm not doing some grand event, but I think just the step in my life is in his honor. So I think he'd be okay with that, me taking a little break and focusing on me. So there will be some downtime. I'll have to wait a little bit for it, but um, I'm very much in the camp of I used to focus a lot on I'm going to prepare for the worst. So when the best happens, I'm like, that's cool. Now my mentality has shifted and I am going to um, prepare for the best. So I'm going to want the best to happen, but then prepare for the worst. So expect the best, prepare for the worst. And just that shift in my mentality has truly I really believe in the law of attraction. I really just little emails I'm getting, "Hey, would you be interested in this or that?" So,
Hmm.
who knows? That's a very long way of saying I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, it sounds like even not knowing what to do, there's a lot of opportunities there, and whether you're acknowledge it or not, it sounds like you're actually taking yourself, honoring yourself to do to look at these opportunities and you're taking some of them as they come. I also got a lot out of this. I got way more out of that coaching training than I ever expected to. Right, and in fact, like I said, I quit at one point because I'm like, I can't do this. Like, it's just it's in the middle of recovery month. Our festival is the next day. I'm like looking out the window, literally thinking, I need to be doing that. I need to be doing that. I need to be doing that. I need to be out there doing this and that and the other. And I'm like, I don't have. And I'm just like all the things, and I'm just not paying any attention. Anyway, long-winded story, right? But when it came down to it, I'm currently doing a um, a 5 session transformational leadership training with Michael King and David. Oh gosh, I forget David's last name. Another guy. I just met him, with his training. So sorry. And the sad thing is, I know Michael King and I know him fairly well, and so we've done a lot of trainings, and he's coached me a lot. So I know him and his style, and a lot of what he does, I've incorporated into me and in my style because it works for me. Um, I sat down with David yesterday for our first one-on-one coaching session, and he really got more out of me than first of all, more than I ever expected. But he got me to start putting goals down, putting dates down. You were saying dates. And one of those things I said, well, I really not only did we had also just done a whole day the day before, I think it was Monday. Yeah, we did a storytelling day. That was the workshop the whole day. And what's funny, I'm totally going tangent on this, but it's funny because we broke out into our little small group, and I told a story that I tell all the time, right? Like it's ingrained in my head. It's the story of Nathan that almost everybody hears at some point, and it completely bombed. Like it did not land at all. And I started off by I don't know, I added something to it that I never talk about. And then at the end, they were all focused on that one point that I never add in there that doesn't really mean anything. And that was the focus. And I was like, oh, stop thinking about the damn pizza. It has nothing to do with the pizza. But anyway, tangent. What I did, what I really loved was that experience, working on the stories, but also seeing or hearing others, share their stories. I've really, really enjoyed what we did in Mobilize, and I'm looking forward to how we take that to the next, to the next Mobilize. But I said, how can I make that me? What can I do with that? Because he was asking me, what do I want to be doing in 2 years and 5 years from now? And I'm like, well, I don't know. But, uh, but I'm also Nathan, I'm 45 and I have other goals. I mean, I have goals, not other goals. I have goals. And, to put goals into action, to make goals happen, I have to put action into it. He said, you know what would you like to be doing in 2 years? And I'm like, well, this. He said, well, how could you do that? What's a step you could take? I said, well, I guess I could. He said, no, what could you do? And I was like, well, I could actually do a story of self-training, and put something down and look at people and do it here in Virginia, in Richmond, do something small, local, and pick a day. And he's like, well, when would you like to do that? And I'm like, and of course I was like, let's do it like late spring, I was like months and months and months. He's like, well, why do we need to put it out so far? What can we do? Anyway, so he had me commit and put something down on paper, which is really, really well, a paper on a laptop, but you know what I mean. Write something down. Actually, I think I did write it down, but that's really scary. It's like now I actually have something to look at and say, oh gosh, I have to do this. I mean, or I could look at this and say, "Oh gosh, I get to do this." Like that's the shift in thinking for me, right? You know, but I'm scared, but at the same time, I'm like, I enjoyed doing that so much. My next step is to reach out again to Rosie and also to Michael and David, and see how I can, um, take from these trainings and make it, something that'll work for us. And I'm really, really encouraged by that. Like getting that feedback from David, and at accountability. So I love what you've got going on. There was so much magic that came from Mobilize, came at Mobilize, but afterwards, like you, Leanne, is or was watching. I know she's, decided to take off. She's gonna have a real culture shock when she takes that North Carolina accent up to Maine. Let me tell you. I know Tina Fratis is up here. Who else is watching right now? Carly Phillips Summers. I don't know. Do we know Carly? She says, "Hi, Jaclyn, you're amazing." Joanna Vance says, "Video fundraising." Joanna and her new skill sets, right? She's learning some stuff. Joanna's amazing, right? West Virginia's got it going on there. Um, you've got a lot of good stuff, people in your corner, and I recognize that fear can be a good motivator, when it's not overwhelming. And Michael King says this thing. He says, emotions are just wisdom indicators. And I love that, right? Like it's on my board. Well, you're not in my office, but if you're in my office behind me, there's a whole list of handwritten quotes that people have said, that I thought really, connected with my brain. And that's the second one from the top. Because those emotions or those fears, those are wisdom indicators. What is it that it's telling me? And I love what you're doing, where you're going with this. That you've got a supportive uh, other half or other part of you. I don't know if other half, but what that means. But the encouraging part of what came out of Mobilize, is that we're staying connected. Like we're continuing to have these conversations, and we're building platforms so that we can stay have these conversations, so that we can be better to help serve the next person. Which is really, to me, what this is all about. I love you too, Joanna. Good to see you. She says, "I love you guys." Florida in the house, says Tim Perry. All right, all right. I think I missed Tim said that up there earlier too. I missed that earlier, but um, reflecting, Jaclyn, on October. It's October, and I was thinking about a lot of things. I was thinking it's the change of seasons, right? It's and of course I know you're in Arizona. You're in Arizona, right? I don't know why I keep thinking you're in St. Louis, but you're in Arizona, and I know the seasons don't change quite the same way they do here. But it's getting cooler here. The sun is definitely casting longer shadows. The leaves, I'm looking out the window, and we're in Central Virginia, so it's not as vibrant yet. But the leaves are starting to change, and there are a lot of trees. It's going to be beautiful in about a week and a half, and then it's going to be just bleh for a few months, and we may get some snow to pretty it up, but for the most part, it's just going to be bleh for for several months. And my mind is already starting to shut down to that. Like I can feel it. I can feel, and being in tune with my body more these days, and not putting the drugs and the alcohol in me too. There are things that I'm doing, I got back from Mobilize, and I said, you know what? I don't have as much energy as I used to. And yeah, I'm 45 and blah 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 blah. But the reality is like I'm not like doing anything to keep that energy up. And I said, I've got not one but two gym memberships. Maybe I'll go use one of them. One of them is free from work. So, but the other one has like an Olympic pool in it, and I love to swim. And I said, I'm gonna start going back and swimming. And I've made that a routine. Like I've added that in, and I think of it as well, I don't even think it is. It's a part of my meditation process. I get in that pool and it's not, I think about doing more laps than a few weeks ago or whatever like that. But at the same time, I really, instead of making it about numbers and outcomes, it's about what I'm putting into it. I really enjoy this. I'm going to enjoy this experience. If I do 18 laps, okay. If I do 25 laps, fantastic. If I do 2 laps, I'm gonna freaking enjoy this. And I needed that change. And that shift comes a lot from Mobilize and the people I met and the things that were said. And just that shift, like I have a lot more energy now. Like people around me are probably annoyed that I'm bouncing off the wall. Yeah, I've already lost a belt size, sometimes two, depending on what I had for lunch. I've got lunch right here. And like these are the things, like in my advocacy, I have to take care of myself. That's self-care. You mentioned that. I know that you've been working out. Do you want to talk about that? Is that a subject? I forgot to send you questions in advance. I'm sorry, but I don't like to work that way anyway. I like to have a conversation. But so what's going on with that? Because I want to talk about that because I love that you do that. It's like the most brave thing in the world, and I'm scared. I'm intimidated when I see that. I'm like, I could never do that. I could never put a picture of myself, like that up there. And then I see you do that, and I like, oh my God, she's so fierce and powerful and amazing, and I want to do that too, the workout part. Um, what's that about? Tell me about that. I love the fearlessness.
S- So a lot of what you said really resonated with the fact that the way I used to work out was I need to hit this goal. I need to hit this number of miles. I need to stay according to the schedule that I'm doing. And initially it was something where initially when I got into working out, it was truly um for aesthetics. I want to look good in my wedding dress, so I need to lose weight. So my initial motivation was look good because there's going to be like 100 people there, so you need to look great. Okay, great. Then after that, it was, well, we want to have a kid and I want to be at a lower weight so I have a better pregnancy. So everything was always for a goal. And I've struggled with weight my entire life. I will never be a size 2. I will never be skinny, and that's fine. I've learned to accept that, but it's just this constant thing where I was always, when you go to the doctor growing up, everything's like, well, you could lose weight, you could lose weight, you could lose weight, you could lose weight. So you're constantly thinking, I need to be better, I need to do better, and nothing's ever good enough. And one other aspect, once my brother passed away, because I was really working out. We were really focused because, originally my husband and I were going to try for a child, and then he got laid off of work and he was out of work for about 7 months. So, like, maybe we don't have a child now, because we don't have the money. And then once he got into a job, it was like, okay, let's try for this again. Let's get back into better shape so I can have a healthy pregnancy. And I went to but again, the scale wasn't moving. I felt stronger. I was lifting heavier. And I go to my lady doctor and I go, look, I know that number hasn't moved a lot, but you could feel my abs. Like you can check out. I have muscle, I said, and I've my whole life I've had to justify, yes, I'm trying to make efforts. I'm trying to do this. And she's like, yeah, I think you're in a good spot. Yeah, you could totally try for a kid. And so that day I called my husband and I said, like, she gave us the green light. We're good to go. And the next day, my brother died. And it was something that, to be on this extreme high and then to drop to this extreme low, it was devastating. And of course, fitness took a back seat during the grieving time because I'm like, I can't even get out of bed. So we're not going to go run 3 miles. No, thank you. And as time has evolved, I've really adopted um, my brother's mentality, which is it's more colorful words, but who cares what other people think? Um, so I started to just get very candid about it. And this is who I am. I am struggling with my weight. I struggle to lose weight. I struggle to, with motivation. And, I kind of would have these bursts of working out, but I wasn't like I was before. I'm sticking to this schedule. I've hit every day on my calendar. And I thought, I just want to stay in bed. And then I eventually went to a doctor and I got diagnosed with PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And I was so excited. I was like, this isn't just grief. Like, I have something wrong with me. But it gave me encouragement that, okay, I can take steps now to try and better this. So, I always talk about, I'll do my hashtag sertraline queen. I have no problem talking about I take Zoloft, and it is the first time that I have truly been allowing myself to feel joy again. So when I feel that happiness, I'm like, I'm gonna work out for me. I'm not gonna work out because I need to have a child or I need to fit into a wedding dress or I need to do anything. I'm gonna do it because I want to feel good and I want to look good. And I'm tired of being, sad girl in bed all the time. Like, let's just take one day at a time. So this past week, I'm sure you saw I was on this rampage of like 6 days in a row, blah, blah, blah. And I totally tweaked my knee. And old Jaclyn would have said, "Suck it up. You must stick to your schedule. You were going to do 5 to 6 days a week." But then I honored myself and I said, "Why don't you let your knee rest? It's the end of your job. Just sit and enjoy that and just sit in that. And then truly after this call, I'm going to go work out." So it's like allowing yourself to, give yourself that grace of, I don't need to be a machine constantly. And I'm finally doing this for me. I'm not doing this for other people. And, if people want to judge me, and again, like you said, like here I am in a sports bra and shorts, I'm like, here's my pooch. I don't care. You have it too, I'm sure. Um, it's that mentality from my brother. Again, much more colorful language, but I don't care what you think of me. And this is who I am. And I'm going to be true to myself. And I think weight is a pretty common thing a lot of people have struggled with at some point in their life. And, my goal truly for the rest of my life is just to live open and honest. And, people may think I overshare, or I don't really care. It's for me. So I can look back. That is one good thing about Facebook is the little memories. I'm like, oh, I did do that last year. That was good. It's something where I've truly made social media almost like this online diary of things in my life, and you know, just to reflect back. And I think, again, I'm gonna go work out today, and if I hurt my knee again, am I gonna push myself? Maybe not, but it's just all about making better choices. I mean, just like harm reduction, like maybe don't get fries and more fries. Maybe just, like Red Robin gives you free fries nonstop. Like maybe you
Oh,
eat
chicken
all
fries. Oh,
but I'm not gonna lie, I still get the free fries as the appetizer and then more fries. I mean, it's fries. But I just view things very differently because when you're viewing things in a very much like you can't have this is a cheat day, this is when you're disciplining yourself, and then you just develop this unhealthy relationship with food and fitness, you can't enjoy it. So I want French fries. I'm going to eat French fries. But I'm not then going to say, and now I'm going to run 3 extra miles for those fries. No, I'm going to watch Netflix and I will watch Grey's Anatomy for the 53rd time. So it's taken me 37 years to get to this self-acceptance stage, and I'm glad I'm here. But it was a lot of through therapy, honestly, just working through a lot of preconceived ideas that I had had and just kind of unwinding that.
Yeah. That's awesome, Jaclyn. I really appreciate it. Before we say goodbye, because it's right around the hour. Isn't that quick? It goes by quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
Uh,
does.
we've I've really enjoyed this conversation, as you can tell. Is there anything you want to add or say before we say goodbye?
Um, you know what? I appreciate you giving me this is the first time I have been interviewed live. And I will say I was terrified that I was going to drop the F bomb a bunch, but yay for self-restraint. But I just appreciate like having this conversation with you. Like I know we were just in Vegas for a few days, but it's like I miss seeing you and I miss seeing everyone, and it's just good to catch up. And I'll do my shameless plug for my podcast. Dark and Enlighten is everywhere streaming. And if you feel like donating today, look up Shot in the Dark in Arizona. We're all volunteers, all donation. We all appreciate it. So all of our money goes to supplies for our participants. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
One thing I didn't tell you, I forgot to tell you this, and I may have mentioned this before, but our biggest audience, our biggest group of people who listen regularly, because we put this through Facebook Live, and we're lucky if we get 10 views live, and then that's okay because there are a lot of people who go back and watch it, and I'm constantly getting messages, which is really neat. Um, but our biggest audience, we take this, right? We take the video and the sound, we give it to Paytel. And Paytel is an organization that provides content for tablets for individuals who are incarcerated. So, yeah.
Oh.
So we give this to them for free, and then it's provided to individuals. I don't know. I think we're at like 48 or 49 jails and prisons. I think just in Virginia.
It's 48.
48. Is it just Virginia?
I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either. It's not new that we're doing this. It's just new that Justin and I are starting to get the information about this because it's my favorite thing that we do with the podcast. I'm a person in recovery, and I found my initial steps in recovery through a McShin pod, in jail. And so, this was really born out of the jail programs that had to be removed last year and the beginning of this year, really during COVID, when we couldn't get information in, and we were able to take this, provide this information, and hopefully connect with people. And we're constantly getting people who ask all kinds of questions about my personal life, and it confuses me. And then I realize, oh yeah, I talked about that on the show. So it's kind of interesting, but it's a really neat thing that we do with this. And I wish it had been, well, it doesn't matter. I'm glad it was somebody's idea, and I'm glad we're doing this. And I'm glad that you got to experience this and be a part of that. And thank you for that. Yeah, really, Jaclyn Brown, our guest today, and thank you. You honored us by sharing about Mark and all the incredible work you've done, and I know that you're going to continue to do. The podcast is Dark and Enlightened. Is that right? Yeah, Dark and Enlightened. I have yet to listen. I'm going to make it a point to do this because I keep seeing this stuff, and I'm like, oh, I want to hear that. I want to hear that. But I will make it a point. Get in there, go listen, and we'll help support and see what Jaclyn does next. Thanks again to our producer over there, Justin B. I'm not going to even say. I've known Justin for 3.5 years. I can't say his name.
You can't even remember my first name half the time.
Dude, I've done.
You really can't. You got, what's your name?
These are Jaclyn. Actually, I got a real quick story before we leave. Jaclyn, when we were did you go to the party? I guess it was Thursday night at Mobilize. There was a reception for the faces of, for Sean's group, the Nevada group. There was a gala reception thing. Yeah, okay. I think all of us that were there, if we were a coach, we were invited. But I went to the party, and I didn't end up sitting at the McShin table because I thought we as coaches were all sitting together. And then I was that wasn't the case. And then my chair had been given up. So I just kind of went and sat with some whole bunch of random people I didn't know, which is fun, actually. I mean, there's a whole lot of fun fun in that for me. But I look over at these people and we all do the name thing. And I looked at them and I'm like, trying to remember. I said, I'm probably not going to remember everybody's name. I've done a lot of memory destroying substances over the years. And I just kind of turned and I looked, up that way, towards the stage. And then I looked back and there was two women next to me were looking at me horrified. And that's when I realized not everybody here is in recovery. With that, hey, listen, it's been an amazing Wednesday. I appreciate you, Jaclyn. You're great. Good luck with the workout today. Tomorrow, we have Moses Wright with that long-term recovery here on the show, and he's going to be spitting fire. I know, and I'm looking forward to that conversation. That's it, right? I don't have anything else to talk about, right?
That's all she wrote.
That's all she wrote?
That is all she wrote.
What a fun day. Thank you so much, Jaclyn. Appreciate you. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening.
Here at McShin, we believe in the McShin way, which is authentic recovery support service providers, people with lived experience, bringing that experience to those who need that lived experience in recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in many things to support our mission. We believe in women empowerment.
What I love most about what we believe here at McShin is we believe in the authenticity of the peer-to-peer approach.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in giving people opportunity.
Here at McShin, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
At the McShin Foundation, we believe in helping people reach their full potential.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in placing principles before personalities to help spread hope.
Here at McShin, we believe that recovery is possible and that any person seeking recovery can become a more acceptable, responsible, and productive member of society.
Here at the McShin Foundation, we believe in self-discovery.
Here at McShin, we believe in saving lives and offering second chances.
Here at McShin, we believe you can do this.
Here at McShin Foundation, we believe that we can only keep what we have by giving away, which is why we continue to help others like us seek and find recovery.